Welcome back. Today, we're going to be talking about why you need a tilt shift lens on your photo shoot. So, there's a lot of controversy on the internet about, do you need a tilt shift lens? Do you not need a tilt shift lens? I can tell you, after 30 years of shooting architecture, you absolutely do need one. You don't need one to get started. You can float through somehow without one, but you're going to come up to some situations where you're going to need one. Let's find out why. Let's get this bad bear right here. This is my 17 tilt shift. This is the beauty lens, right? The first reason, and maybe the most important reason, is you will find time and time again, you're in a small space, a bedroom perhaps. Maybe it's for a designer, maybe it's for a hotel. You're backed up against the wall. You've got your camera straight and level. You're not too high, you're not too low. You're where you need to be. And lo and behold, all you see is the ceiling. You don't see the bottom of the bed. You don't see the floor. And you think, oh, well, I'll just tilt the lens down and I'll crop later. But it's likely if you're against the wall, you're going to crop out the sides. You're going to crop out the nightstand table. You're going to crop out the TV. You're going to crop something out that maybe the designer of the hotel needs to see, right? And you won't know that until afterwards. You're like, oh, crap, I can't do that. And so you end up in a situation where there really is, as I know, no good fix. So the only way to do that is by shifting down your lens, right? And that shift down allows you to keep your camera straight, have the width that you need, and also get the floor and less of the ceiling. Will happen over and over again. And if you don't have this lens, the 17 tilt shift, you are out of luck. There's another reason you need a tilt shift lens. Let's break out this 24 here. This can happen with the 24, this can happen with the 17. You're shooting a ballroom. Let's take a look at this ballroom for the Waldorf Astoria. I walked in there. This is a long room. It could be a long hallway. Any large room like this. If you're shooting just, again, you have the issue with the ceiling, which you're going to have to take that camera and you're going to have to shift it down. You can't crop in because you're as wide as you're going to go. You're against the back wall. You've got those chairs. If you tilt the camera down, you're going to lose your sides. Not good. You're also not going to be able to maximize your focus front to back. With a tilt shift lens, you can, in fact, tilt the lens forward just a little bit. And with the right kind of focus and a little bit of tweaking, you can get everything front to back as tack sharp as it's going to ever be at a fairly wide aperture, f8, 5.6, maybe 11. So you know you're getting the sharpest image out of your lens, because if you go to 16 or 22, because of the diffraction of the aperture, your picture is going to start to get a little fuzzy and blurry on the edges. And if you're shooting for high-end clients, or you have expectations that you want your images to be as good as possible, that's not going to cut it. The other reason, the third reason why I like to use tilt shift lenses is because they constrain your vision to one focal length. When you have a wide zoom, and you're zooming in all the time, zoom in, zoom out, zoom in, zoom out, it's harder to focus, I think, in my experience, on the construct of the composition, right? One of the things I learned early on in my career was always go with the longest lens that you could fit in that room. And I think the tendency these days is the opposite. Go with the widest lens, right? See how much you can see. What ends up happening is your shots become lag. They lose character, right? You're not fighting for a beautiful composition. You're just going wide and it looks great. And maybe it does. Maybe you're okay with that. Maybe your client's okay with that. And you have to make that call. But there's some shoots where you need to think, okay, man, I need to stick with a 24 and that's it. I'm not going 17 tilt on this. I'm not gonna go with a zoom, and I'm not gonna 18 millimeter or 20 millimeter. I'm sticking with the 24. I'm gonna make this work. These images you're looking at now were all shot 4x5 on a 28 millimeter lens, because that's the widest I had at the time, a 28, which was a 90 millimeter back in the day, translates to 28. All these shots are 28. I didn't have anything wider than that. Now, that does not mean that the look these days isn't different, doesn't mean that you're going to fight for every shot, but when you're shooting longer, it tends to make you focus a little bit more on the composition and fight a little bit more for the shot. And when you have the ability to shift up and down, it gives you the ability to really see what you're working with, not make guesses that you can make the corrections later. Now, I'll make a caveat in terms of the corrections and such. I was working with Capture One the other day. I had my 17 tilt shift in this locker room, and the camera literally was just like pointed in one direction and it was out of focus. And I saw like a button on Capture One I'd never seen before. I pressed the button and the picture straightened itself out and it was perfect. I'm like, oh crap. That just took a really bad picture and turned it into what to me looked like a pretty good picture. I don't know what the details of that were. I of course corrected the perspective of the 17, but there are some pretty incredible digital tools out there today. But there are moments where you're not going to be able to get out of not having a 17 millimeter lens, where you are out of room, left and right, and you need to shift down. There's no way. If you want to be a professional architectural photographer, you're going to need one. So just know at some point, invest in that 17 tilt shift. Your second lens will be a 24 tilt shift. And I actually have here my old 24 tilt shift. As a side note, you can pick these guys up for 800 bucks, but pick up a used one. You don't need to go buy the newest and greatest tilt shift. These are pretty much all been taken care of, I would guess, by architectural photographers or hobbyists. Pick up a used one. You won't be sorry. Start with the 17, go with the 24. Well, I guess that's it. I hope you learned a little something. Any questions or comments, please leave them below. Subscribe. We've got some cool videos coming out to help you learn about how to become an architectural photographer and how to make a living in this business. So, till then, keep shooting.